This is part 2 of the ECU build. If you didn't see part 1, you should check this video out right here. We're trying to get the idle functioning 100% properly on this BMW 733. The only way to do that is to do a standalone ECU. So this is part 2 of that build, and I'm really excited about it. So let's jump right in. Thing we know for sure is that it's not going to do any good to ECU this machine if we don't know what the performance is on the standard tune. So I have an app here. I don't know how good it is, but it is called Quarter Mile, and it's supposed to tell us how fast this car is from 0 to 60. We're gonna see if we can find a space to actually do it, and we're gonna see if we can't figure out how fast this car is with the stock ECU. Car runs great, has a tiny shimmy at about 60 miles an hour. It's not very loud, and the loudness that you hear is mostly because this exhaust may as well be a pass-through exhaust. It does have a catalytic converter, but it's basically an open pipe. And it doesn't have to pass emissions anyways because of the age of the car and all that stuff, but it's on there either way. I'm ready to see if this car actually performs and how well it does, because, you know, why not? We just have to find a place where we can do a 0 to 60 run and figure out how this app works, which I have no idea.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait.
So we'll try a 0 to 60 run and see if it takes
one eternity
or half an eternity or whatever. I suppose I'll actually turn off the air conditioner when I do that, because that seems like it makes the most sense. I quite enjoy driving this. It has its normal squeaks and rattles and that sort of stuff, but nothing that can't be easily fixed. We'll just get on this highway here and we'll see if we can't do a 0 to 60 run somewhere, or if we're even going to get up to 60, because I honestly have no idea. But what I'm going to do is, I'm at the on-ramp here, so I'm going to go ahead and stop.
Hammer time!
And here we go. Processing my run. 0 to 60 in 30.142 seconds.
All right, happy, nice and easy.
Well, that sounds like about right. It does give me my altitude and my miles per hour and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, there you go. Let's try another run here. Just a moment.
Oh, come on!
We're at a stoplight. Most people are not going to be concerned about me doing this, because, let's be honest, every other car that's lined up here is much faster than me.
Boom. Roasted.
For them, this is not going to be a race of any sort. It's just, you know, for me. For me.
A few moments later.
Well, this does have a downhill slope, so, and we're not going to make it to 60 because we're getting another light. Of course, on the speedometer, I was going well over 60, so that begs the question, why?
Say it! Say it!
I can't tell you why. Here we go.
Come on, Gary, it's a race! A race!
was 0 to 60 in 18.999 seconds, so better.
And did I catch a niner in there?
0.43 G's. Oh boy. It was also a slight downhill. I suppose we could try one more.
Do we have to?
See what happens. Occasionally you'll hear a little rattle. That's actually the gear shift knob. For some reason that likes to rattle. I don't know. I can't explain it. I will say this car rings out at, you know, 6,500 or so. Starts to red line at about 6 1/4. But when it's screaming like that, it doesn't seem like it's, you know, it doesn't seem like it's very happy. So I know most of the engine power in this car is torquey down low stuff. But again, I would have to do lots of 0 to 60 runs in order to figure out what the best setup is, or the, you know, the best strategy is to get the best 0 to 60 time.
Hey partner, come on, you gotta relax. Don't force it. Get a blow out your O-ring.
No matter what we do, if I'm being honest, short of LS swapping this car, it's never going to be a, you know, a speed demon. That's not what it's built for.
What a piece of junk.
It's built for luxury cruising, and it works really well for that. We do have a squeaky clutch pedal. I have to fix that. I also swapped out the regular standard thermostat for one that opens at a lower temperature.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Which means the car is running a lot cooler than it has in the past. In fact, not even really up to what most would consider running temperature, so I might have to swap the thermostat back into the car, because you really can't drive around in a car that that doesn't run at a regular standard running temperature. And with that being said, it seems to idle better and all that stuff when it runs cooler, and the only thing that kills these cars is basically high temperatures. So high temperatures is basically high temperatures. If I have to deal with it running at a lower temperature, that gives me at least the peace of mind of knowing that I'm not going to overheat the car. One thing I did not do was dismantle the or turn off the air conditioning. Give that a try in just a second. All right, let's give it a shot. The air conditioner is off for the third run, probably the final run, but we'll see.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
Do I think the air conditioner's gonna make any difference? Probably not. Here we go.
Eventually,
Well, let's see what we got here.
Serious shit.
Oh. Well, we got 0 to 60 in 44.802 seconds.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
It wasn't as fast as the last 0 to 60 that we did, which of course was on a downward slope a little bit. It's really hard to say, but that's we'll take the best of 3, which is 18.999. And once we ECU it, we'll come out, we'll check it out and see what it does. A lot of the new wiring harness is buttoned up and extended in length, and we have all these pinouts tested and checked. But you'll notice that we've got pinouts that come to this, which on the wiring harness for the car this is supposed to go to would connect to the other half of the engine to connect this to fuse boxes and stuff. This doesn't exist at all on the old wiring harness. So we're going to pull the old wiring harness and find out where these pins pin out on the old wiring harness so that we can rewire this on the new wiring harness to where those pins are actually supposed to go. Because in this we have things like certain signal grounds and the tachometer and all that stuff. And for the E23, the tachometer is going to go on one of these pins right here that are inside the firewall. So we're going to obviously have to cut that wire up here somewhere and wire it into the wiring, into one of these connectors. So it's a little bit more work to finish up the wiring harness before we can basically crimp this all up and put it in the car. But in order to do that, we've got to pin out some of the old wiring harness to find the wires that we need. So let's pull the old wiring harness. To do this, we're going to start at the source, and the source is this ECU right here. Here is the original wiring harness. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. We're going to disconnect everything and get it ready for the new one. Okay, so inside the glove box, you can see that we have another unit up here. I believe that unit controls the idle control valve on this car, which of course, this is the only car that has that unit in it.
Which unit? Oh,
but if we disconnect this right here, then we should be able to get the wiring harness out. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that. All right, so we took the glove box liner off, and now we can see it a lot better. Just held on here by a simple screw. All we really need is the wiring harness off of here. And it's just an 8mm to get this out of here. This is the main relay. We're not totally certain what this does.
Maybe we should find out.
This right here is our O2 sensor lead, and it's a narrow band, so we're going to be replacing this with a wide band. But we got to get these things off. So when we follow this wire around here, it goes to our coil, which is buried down here. So there we go, we've got that wire off. So now what we have left is fuel injector stuff. Let's get some other ratchet sets and get ready to pull that off.
Pull that off, Playboy.
So we got our grounds and our plug wires off over in here. The grounds were connected to here. And we remove this, get easier access to all this stuff in here. We have this in here, which is the cold start valve, and it has a plug on the end of it. This right here is for the map sensor, so we're gonna go ahead and pull that. Yeah, this is the idle control valve right here. Boom, that's off. Throttle position sensor, boom.
Goes the dynamite.
So we've got everything off except for this sensor right here, which is a part of the diagnostic system in this car, but this wire is going to go to a different sensor in the new car, and all this has to come out so we can actually install that sensor. So it's a thing we're going to have to do anyways. For now, I really can't get to the sensor, so I'm just going to cut that out.
Come on now, cut it out.
I'm going to leave it up here so we remember how it was routed, but otherwise, we are done. Go. Old pile of dirty spaghetti going out, new pile of dirty spaghetti going in.
Say what?
Okay, so here we have the wiring from the new harness. And the ones that are circled here are all going to a pinout that doesn't lead anywhere on the new harness, because it's meant to be plugged into a second harness that would have been on the original car that we got the harness from. So what we have to do is trace out these pinouts on this harness so we know where those wires go.
Getting kind of bored.
So we can wire them into the new harness that's going in, so that these particular things are all going to work properly. Because we definitely want a tack output. The engine light signal don't really care about, but obviously the main trigger, the main relay trigger, has to work, and I'm sure this ground is important.
You sure?
So we have to figure out where these wire to, and then extend the new harness to include these wires. I'm going to go ahead and do the pinouts on this to figure out where these wires are. Well, it's become extremely obvious to me that all this wire termination checking and everything else is just lead me down the path of not doing this.
That's what she said.
So I know these wires all check out and they go to where they're supposed to go. We're gonna put it on there and figure the rest out, because it's really easy to get at these pieces inside the car, as well as all these pieces. So really all I'm doing is putting off the inevitable of figuring out the last remaining wires, which are kind of involved with this connector right here, which I'll have to cut off and connect those wires properly when the time comes, because you can't find a wiring diagram that specifically gives you the ECU pinouts for the ECU that I have. They just don't seem to exist.
They don't exist.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap this up, get it in the car. Go. Looks all right. I'll take it. Okay, so we have everything kind of in place here. This plastic piece, now I don't know, we'll see how it fits or whether it fits. It gets pushed down, so it pushes all of the fuel injectors in at the same time, and all the wires seem to run in the correct place. We got our throttle position sensor and our temperature sensor right here, but you could see the idle control valve is going to have some difficulty living under there. So we'll see how that works out. Then we've got it snaking around up here, pretty much where the old one ran. And we've got our relays here, which this is where the old relays were mounted. We're very close. I'm sure there's a way we can make that happen. All the cabling and connectors seem to be okay. There is a cable that comes out the bottom of this plastic thing that has to go over this way instead of running straight down that way, because this fuel rail has the fuel running right there. So that's a little bit more difficult. We'll see how that works out. To me, it looks like everything is kind of lining up the way it's supposed to line up. The wires that run down through there don't really do a whole lot. Everything else is up here where it's supposed to be. These are kind of all the grounds. I think we're in pretty good shape. All that's left to do is kind of start connecting stuff and see how far we get.
Many unbearable hours later.
So we have our injectors on. We have our temp sensors on. And we do have this wired into the right area. Although we're going to rewire it. We're going to change this and this so it's a variable one. So we're in good shape there. It does appear that this hose will fit properly, which is good. So we managed to get the idle control valve in there. We're going to have to rewire the idle control valve, because as you can see, it's totally different than the plug that's there. That's not a problem. We know exactly which pinouts they're supposed to be. I'm still not worried about that stuff just yet. It's going to be simple. We still have the bottom end wiring harness. Now this comes in a metal tube that we might have to cut open to actually install it, because it's all down under there. And we also have our grounds right here, and then this is our coil wires right here, and our coil is down here. So we may have to relocate the coil somewhere over here, and I have to figure out exactly where I want to ground this. Probably not a good idea to ground it on the exhaust, so I'm not exactly sure yet where we're going to ground this, but we'll figure that out. The old one was grounded under here. It would be nice if we could ground it on the intake over here like with this, but I really don't want to extend the ground wires any more than I have to. So we're gonna have to find some sort of engine ground or chassis ground over here on this side that isn't the exhaust to ground all this stuff. We're also going to remove the mass airflow sensor right here, and that's just going to be replaced. This tube right here, and then it has an air temperature sensor that's going to go in there. Maybe we'll do that next. Now we're going to have to take this whole assembly off to get this out, so let's do that. There are a couple of hardware pieces that need to be removed. The harmonic balancer is all the way down there. We may have to take the radiator out and all that stuff to get to it, but I'm kind of hoping I could take the fan off and get to it. I hate taking this fan off, but I think we're gonna have to.
No.
The harmonic balancer has to be modified, and then there is a crank position sensor that's going to be installed down there, which will attach to a new one, and go right here. So, well, Let's get the fan off. Okay, so this is the harmonic balancer. It's going to become our trigger wheel.
Not this again.
Yes, this again.
For the new setup. And on the wheel, it has marked the timing. So what we're gonna need to do is take this tooth wheel and line it up in the proper location, which I don't remember where that is. I have to look at the FAQ. But that's gonna line up in a specific position against this untoothed point, and then slide over this. Then it gets tacked into place so it stays, and we're all set. So it's just this little divot here that has to come off, and then we have to clean it up, and then we're gonna have a trigger wheel. Very cool. All right, so the ring has to go on here in a specific location. As you can see, it is just slightly smaller than it needs to be, which is perfect.
Well, you always left me satisfied and smiling, so.
That's what she said.
So we heat this ring up and we slide it on right where it's supposed to be. Make sure it is level with this plane. In other words, push it down on the sockets, and we're all set. Don't know how long this will take or what temperature it needs, but we'll see.
Why do you always do these stupid things?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
So the last thing that we need to do to make our trigger wheel finished is to put some tacks on that little ring we put on the harmonic balancer. Now,
oh shit, here we go again.
I'm not a mechanic and I'm certainly not a welder.
What? You don't say. You don't say.
But I did pick up a welder so that I could do stuff like this, because there is some other welding on the car that's gonna have to get done, like some rust on the hood to replace the hood hinges.
No! God, please, no!
So I thought, well, this is a good place to start. So let me show you what we got. This right here, these were my first welds, just testing. And since we only really need to tack this stuff in, I wanted to test some tacks here in the middle.
That is a...
to make sure that we would get something that holds. Now these don't need to be super deep tacks. They don't really need to do much of anything, but just hold this outer ring stable on the harmonic balancer. And it's already on there. It's not going anywhere.
Sure, Jan.
Because of the fact that you have to heat it up to get it on there. So it's basically pressed in to begin with. But we did do some tacks. Some are better than others. But I do think that they will hold, and we're going to be just fine with our harmonic balancer. So I think it's time to put it back in the car. Now, I did pick up a Yes welder. It's one of the least expensive welders that you could pick up. I think this one was around $1,000, but the reason why is because it does MIG, it does TIG, it does stick, but it also will do
these nuts. Got him!
So we picked this up, we picked up a cylinder, so we have some gas, and we're gonna learn how to weld over time. If you guys want to know how this works, well, today was my first day welding, and after watching a bunch of videos and stuff, this is what I got.
That's what she said.
Is it great? No. But this works. It's a good start, and I'm using 110. I don't have 220. So this welder will work with 110 or 220, which is one of the reasons why I picked it, besides the fact that it'll also do plasma cutting and other stuff. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of use out of this. I had to start somewhere. Gonna have to cut it off right there because these videos can't be too long. But on the next one, we're gonna actually complete this entire ECU process. I know you don't want to miss it. Now, why am I spending all this? Why am I spending all this time and money on this beat up old 733 that's not worth anything?
Feel bad for him.
Only be for the love of cars. And if this moron can figure it out, I know you can too.
Welcome to Pillow World.
So go out there and find that one that you always wanted.
Okay, time for an eyes open nap.
Pick it up, get it back on the road, and have some fun. And I'll see you in the next video.